That was a little bit about our organization, Quint, Wellington, Redwood. We're a completely 100% independent management consulting firm that remains dedicated to the improvement of IT's value to the business. We've been in business now for over 20 years. We started off in 1992 over in Amsterdam, and today we've expanded globally. We have over 250 consultants now in about 50 countries on just about every single continent. And our core business practices include sourcing, architecture, governance, lean IT, service management, and DevOps. We are proud to say that we've been listed as the top global advisor on sourcing and governance by the IAOP, and we can continue to be a trendsetter in the areas of service management, lean IT, and DevOps. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, we have been selected now for the last 3 years as the world's best outsourcing provider by the IAOP. We received the highest possible ratings, 10 out of 10, in their 3 grading criteria in the areas of customer references, delivery excellence, and programs for innovation. We consider this to be a hat trick. We've achieved this goal the last 3 years, and we're very proud of that. And we make that due to being completely independent. And we've been ranked against some of the largest players in this field. And it's nice. I think we're a little bit more. We're quite nimble, and it's nice to be able to say that that we are the best in their field and recognized as such by our peers. Now, I just want to cover what our motto is. It's Dare to Challenge, and we like to be challenged ourselves. The whole reason behind that is that we wanted to achieve measurable organizational change by challenging ourselves and our clients. We apply results-based contracting to many of our assignments. We have confidence in our work, and we are willing to put at least 25% of our fees at risk. We co-create best fit solutions with our clients and use our world-class best practices to ensure that this sustainable change and improvement is done. And last off, we're a completely global organization ourselves, so we understand that there are geographic and cultural differences, and that within the organization as well, that connecting people is what is most important when achieving organizational change. And now, with any further ado, I'm going to hand things over to our presenter today, Pushkar Sonan.
Thank you, Alex, for the introduction, and welcome everybody to this webinar where we will speak about shared services. Good morning to the folks from America, good afternoon to anybody from Europe, and a very good evening to anyone from Asia and India who has joined today's webinar. My name is Pushkar Soman, and I'm the North American Sourcing Advisory Lead for Quint. I have been in the IT industry for over 20 years, and most part has been with IT outsourcing service providers. And I've worked across various aspects of outsourcing, offshoring, also worked with some clients, helping them set up shared service centers, done BPO transitions, and spent a lot of time working with very, very interesting assignments on this. The objectives of today's webinar is we're going to look at shared service centers as a way to deliver value to clients, and we see a lot of this happening now. We'll also look at the shared services scenario as of today, briefly look at the trends that we see in shared service centers, and then look at the important aspects to make a shared service center a success in terms of delivering real value to the organizations. The shared services centers have been around for a while, and they really started back in the day when people did not want to outsource but offshore their operations, and that's really when this whole shared services center as a concept started. So obviously, there is no surprise that the Asia and the low-cost European countries host a lot of the shared service centers. India, Philippines, China is upcoming very fast, and there are about 9,000 of them as of 2015. Central and South America do host a sizable number of shared service centers, and these cater specifically to the European and the Spanish and the Portuguese-speaking population. What came as a surprise, and what may come as a surprise to everybody, is the number of shared service centers in North America, but North America does have a sizable number of shared services centers delivering services to companies in America. These shared service centers are across various sizes. They are from as small as 10, 15, which are really very small, to more than 1,000. But what we see is up to 500 FTEs is the most common, or the sweet spot, as we may call it, in the shared service center space. The functions that are delivered sorry, through the shared services centers, about 26% of the shared service centers are multifunction, which means they offer more than one function when it comes to services. Finance and accounting is the other leading function, which is another 26%, and then HR and IT are also amongst the bigger functions that are being served through the shared service centers. We see manufacturing as one of the leading adopters of shared service centers, and they have a lion's share. One of the reasons is manufacturing as a business is prone to a lot of standardization, and therefore it does become relatively easy to set up a shared service center because your process and the way you work is pretty much standardized across. Financial services has also been a good adopter, and they have a significant share in the shared services market today. The desired benefits and the reasons why shared services centers are set up could be one or all of these, and typically what we see is the companies set up a shared service center with the intent of standardization and moving it to a low-cost location, thereby achieving cost saving. That's the first benefit that they expect. Having done that, they then move to the second tier, which is improving the quality of service through a process transformation exercise, where they start looking at the processes, see how can they be delivered better, faster, cheaper, and thereby deliver value. And the third, which is a very strategic goal, is really impact business performance. We have seen some shared service centers, specifically in the retail and the financial services space, which use this aspect a little more than the others, where they mine a lot of customer data and use data analytics to get customer insights for targeted marketing, which is a huge business value for their organizations. Typically, and this is what we have seen having worked with numerous companies over the last so many years, is the service centers around year 5 is when they start really delivering the maximum value that they're expected to deliver. So from year 1 to year 5 is really euphoria, and everyone is very happy, things are going pretty well. But year 5 onwards, the performance starts to plateau, and it does start declining around year 7. The decline rate is much faster than the climb rate from year 1 to year 5, and that's unfortunate, but we've seen this happen in most cases. Just to give you an idea of the 9,000 odd service centers that we spoke about 35% of them are in the greater than 5 years age bracket, and 18% are between 3 to 5 years. So they are approaching the threshold where the value delivered may start to erode. Now, why does the value erode, and what happens when such value erosion starts? There are a couple of things that the organizations do, and these are probably not the best options, the best decisions to make. Some companies decide to outsource the entire operation, which means they either want to sell the unit or they want some outsourcing provider to come over, take over the operations and start running it. So it becomes an outsourced unit as compared to an in-sourced shared services center. And that's one option that companies exercise. The other is they just completely in-source and bring operations either back, or they give it back to different businesses if they have centralized. Those are the two options that most companies we have seen take. These, however, are not the best of options, and the shared service centers can really deliver value even beyond 5 years and even longer. I mean, there are some service centers which have been around for more than a decade and they still deliver a lot of business value, and there are very valid reasons as to why that happens, which we will look at in the subsequent slides. So all the things that we have said so far don't sound too promising as far as shared service centers goes. So we said that beyond 5 years, typically the value starts eroding, and after that, people either outsource the entire operation or just disband the shared service center and bring the operations back in. We would therefore like to believe that the shared service center is a dying trend or definitely a thing of the past, but very surprisingly, that's not the trend. We see more and more organizations expanding their shared service centers. And while they're doing that, they are moving from what was the cost-saving model to a value-adding function. And they really want the shared service centers to add business value more than they save costs. We see a lot of organizations pursue multi-function shared service centers. What this means is if an organization has a shared service center that's delivering only one function, they want to add more functions to that SSC, or if companies are starting afresh and they want to set up a new SSC, they're starting with a few functions together and not really going one at a time. The top three functions that we see companies take to shared service centers are finance, accounting, human resources, and IT. So the trend is definitely very positive. Shared service centers are on the rise. There are more companies adopting service centers. There are more companies moving more functions to shared service centers. But what should the companies do in order for the shared service centers to really deliver value in the long run? And there are some basic aspects and key considerations that one needs to look at to be able to successfully build and operate a shared service center. I'm sorry. Here are some key considerations across strategy and business operations. If you look at the bottom box, there are these four fundamental questions around strategy and operations that need to be answered. The first is, does the shared service policy fit into your company's strategic business operations? So is a shared service center strategic for you? Does it have a clear position in the organization? Is it a part of the organization? Is it supported by the executives? Does the board or the executive sponsors support the whole shared service center initiative? And then what is in scope? And for those services in scope, do those business units, those functions, those leaders, do they also support the shared service center? These are four basic questions, and there's obviously stuff around the business case, the ownership of the business case. There has to be a big component, which is the attitude and behavior. And what we will look at is a few of those in a little more detail in the next slides. What these key considerations translate to, if we can translate them from what they are as statements to critical success factors, it boils down to these important critical success factors. In the strategic domain, alignment with corporate strategy, executive support and sponsorship, communication and change management are four critical aspects. On the operational side, a sound governance model, metrics and measurement are important, and attitude and behavior, which is last but not the least really, is extremely important for continued success of the shared service center. And we will look at these in a little more detail in the next slides. Alignment with corporate strategy. The shared service center has to be a part of the long-term strategy for it to succeed in the long run. If it is not, and if it is a cost-saving tactic, you would rather not set up a shared service center but just outsource your operations, because you are going to run out of saving costs in about 4 to 5 years, and that's one of the reasons why we see a decline in the value delivered over a 5-year period. Now, the strategy could be centralization of services, could be standardization of services, could also be the company wants to go global and they want to set up a shared service center to be able to support the global processes. I mean, it could be many. We've seen many companies set up a shared service center to improve customer service, because with standardization, their customers see a consistent behavior from the company, and there could be many strategic goals that a company may want to achieve. But the bottom line is the shared service center needs to be a way of achieving these strategic goals. Many researchers indicated that companies where the shared service center is a part of the strategic goal deliver a very strong and a very positive impact as far as the organization operations, the quality of service, and even productivity is concerned. The next important strategic aspect is that about executive sponsorship. The shared service center has to be a top-down approach. That's the way it has to begin. People at the top of the organization, the executives, the board, they have to understand the need and buy in and support the shared service center. After having done that, the organization needs to create an organization structure that supports the shared service center, which means the business units that it serves and the operations manager have to be in the part of the plan, and they have to agree and wholeheartedly support the plan, without which it is going to die a natural death in its due course of time. Please understand that the shared service center is carved out of the existing organization. It is not something that is bolted on. It's not an add-on. It's a part of your organization. That belief and that understanding is very critical across all levels, more at the executive level, to be able to sustain and deliver business value. Now, most shared service center initiatives start with this executive support, which is fantastic at the beginning, but it does die down after some amount of time, and which is not a good thing to happen. So the executive support has to be continuous. It has to be given always to a shared service center. A shared service center, even the talk of setting up a shared service center starts invoking a lot of fears within employees, and there are fears around job loss, there are fears around relocation and all, and a whole lot of other things, which actually causes a lot of organization chaos and has a potential to cause organization-wide disruption. Communication, therefore, becomes an extremely important part of setting up a shared service center, and there are two aspects to the communication. One is the reason why the center has been set up has to be communicated very clearly, and this communication has to be top-down, and it really has to start from the executives and go all the way down to the grassroots, so that everybody understands why a shared service center is being set up. The next important aspect of communication is people who run the shared service center, and there's a myth that, you know, the person who runs the shared service center should be knowledgeable and a technical resource and know the function pretty well and all that, which is, yes, is required, but what is more important is that person who leads the shared service center is a good communicator, because it is equally or more important for the shared service center to build long-lasting relationships with their customers and to deliver value. So just being good at technology or being good at a function is not enough to successfully lead a shared service center. And we have seen a lot of companies who have got the right kind of leaders for the shared service center do extremely well. In fact, people who are good communicators or good relationship builders at the helm of the SSC, there's a higher chance of that SSC delivering more value and being more successful. As I said before, SSCs, setting up SSCs is a lot of change, so it goes without saying that change management is an important aspect. The change management process needs to be followed, and there has to be a robust change management process right from the beginning, which even continues when we go through operations, because you may decide to add some services, you may decide to probably change the way the shared service center is delivering services. All those aspects need to be governed very well by a very sound change management process. So, we looked at a few important strategic aspects which are around change management, which are around alignment with strategy, communication. We'll now move on to a few operational aspects which are equally important, because with the right strategy and the right communication, we can start the shared service center and it can really become operational. But for it to continue to deliver value, it has to be run very well. That's equally important for it to be successful, which means that governance is a very key process. And there are many researches that indicate that. We're just quoting one research here that was done in 2012. It has seen that a well-designed governance process definitely produces better outcomes across many parameters, and some of the important parameters for a shared service center are operating costs, productivity, quality, and innovation. The governance has to be meaningful, it has to be timely, and it has to be regular. These are the key aspects for a good governance process. Without good governance, the operations will not deliver well. There is an old saying, what you cannot measure, you cannot manage, or you cannot improve. It is therefore critical for the shared service center to have a KPI-driven culture. KPI, I'm sure everyone knows, stands for Key Performance Indicators. People should know what they are working for, what they have to deliver, and all of that has to be quantified to the extent they can, so that it does not really become subjective. It is very data-driven as far as performance is concerned. Again, surveys indicate that companies who do this pretty well deliver significantly higher impact on all the operating parameters. It's also important to choose the right parameters to measure. Otherwise, you will end up barking up a wrong tree. So if you are setting up an F&A service, then your top three parameters could be cost per invoice, could be percentage of electronic invoicing. You have to decide what's more important, what aligns with your strategic objectives, and start defining and measuring those parameters. Bear in mind that these may change over time as your strategic focus changes. You may also have a couple of tactical parameters that you may introduce every 6 months, every quarter, depending on what the shared service center wants to achieve. But those have to be, whatever you have needs to be managed and measured for it to deliver success. So why do shared service centers really start delivering lesser value after a period of time? We saw some reasons. One is, if it is only about cost saving, then you cannot save more than what you can. Like they say, you can cut to the bone, but you cannot go beyond. But if the shared service center has continuously delivered value, the people who work in the shared services center need to have and must have a continuous improvement mindset. This often is overlooked by many companies and customers we work for, but there are some who have used this, who have imbibed this, and their shared services centers are doing exceedingly well. And continuous improvement is one of the top challenges for the shared services centers to achieve excellence. We have seen many companies adopt Lean. Lean is a way of imbibing the continuous improvement mindset. Lean keeps customer value at the center of the universe. So you have to understand who your customer is, you have to understand what value means to them, and then every process, every step of the process that you do, you have to ask the question, does this add value or is this waste? And then remove the waste and increase the value added. It's a continuous process that we go through all the time. That is very, very important, and we have seen a lot of companies adopt lean in their shared service centers for it to be able to deliver value. So what are the key takeaways from today's session? Shared service centers are definitely here to stay. There is no way the companies are going to do away with shared service centers, but we see more and more companies are taking to shared service centers. They're moving from a single function to a multi-function, and more and more of the shared service centers are aiming to deliver business value and doing process transformation. In fact, this chart here shows about 73% of the shared service centers having that as their primary objective, and we have only about 7% who are still on the cost-cutting mode. There's a significant 19% who's in cost-cutting right now, but they definitely want to make the shift to be able to deliver value to the business. For the shared service center to be able to deliver value in the long run, these objectives need to be looked at, and what is very important is they have to be revisited every so often to make sure that they stay current and they stay relevant. We as Quint have done a lot of work in this area, and we would be happy to sit down with you. In case if you're planning to set up a shared service center, we would like to talk to you. If you already have one and are trying to figure out how to add more value through operations, even then we would like to talk to you. Third, if you have a shared service center which is running successfully, even then we would like to talk to you, because it's always good to sit with customers and understand what has worked for them, because every customer is in a way different from the others. That's all that I had, and I will hand it over back to Alex for any questions that we may have.
Fantastic. Thanks, Pushkar, for the great presentation today. We already do have a couple questions. I just want to remind everyone that the Q&A box is still open, so if a question does inspire a question out of you, go ahead and ask it as this session continues. But I'll go ahead and jump into the first one right here, which is how long does it typically take to properly set up a well-running SSC operation?
Oh, well, that's a great question. And it depends on whether you want a multi-function or a single function, but we have seen that it does take between 6 to 8 months or even more to really get this off the ground. A lot also depends on if you already have business operations in the country, you want to set up the shared service center. That makes things a little easier. If not, that takes longer time. But it does take about at least 6 months to get the whole thing off the ground.
Okay, and we'll move to the next question that we have here is how do we ensure that teams have a continuous improvement mindset?
Oh yeah, that's another great question, and it's easier said than done, because it's not something that you can turn on with a flick of a switch. It doesn't work that way. It's a long process where you have to start training people to think and act differently, and really keep the customer at the center of the universe and focus on what's customer value. That is very effectively done using lean and lean IT techniques. So it's a process. You have to start formally coaching and telling people how to adopt lean or whatever method you may choose for continuous improvement. But we have seen many companies even set up centers of excellence for adopting a continuous improvement mindset. And these centers of excellence then start working with business units or shared service centers or functions, and thereby they start permeating the continuous improvement culture within the organization.
Okay, got it. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions come in today, so I just want to go ahead and wrap things up. I just want to thank everyone again for joining us this morning, this evening, wherever you are around the world. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you found this session both educational and informative. Just the next step, Pushkar touched on before, we'd be happy to have just a free expert session with Quint. This is something where you can sort of pick our brains and see what we've been doing in the past. And we also like to reciprocate that as well. We want to see what was going on the other side, as an exchange of knowledge is always a great thing to have. And just to wrap things up again today, guys, I just want to show you the ways that we can that you can contact Quint. Which are here, obviously. We're active on just about every single social media network, so that's where you can find releases of our latest webinars, white papers, and other knowledge share. We put that up there, and also on our website there's a specific knowledge center that you can click on in the top right-hand corner, and that's where you'll find access to some of our great white papers, blog posts, and other content on sourcing, architecture, lean IT, ITSM, and more. And that's going to do it for us, guys. Thanks again for joining. Have a fantastic day.